Imagine for a second that you're standing in the middle of a vast, wind-swept plain in southeastern Turkey. The air smells of dust and dry thyme. Beneath your boots isn't just dirt, it's 12,000 years of silence. Before you, these massive, T-shaped limestone pillars rise out of the earth like the ribcage of some forgotten god. This is Göbekli Tepe. And if the traditional history books are right, this place shouldn't exist. According to the timeline we were all taught in school, 12,000 years ago, humans were nothing more than wandering bands of hunter-gatherers. We were supposed to be worried about where our next meal was coming from, not hauling 20-ton blocks of stone up a hill to build a cathedral. But here's where it gets weird. These stone circles aren't just scattered anomalies. From the misty highlands of Scotland to the sun-baked dirt of the Gambia, the ancient world is littered with them. For decades, archaeologists told us they were ritual sites or calendars. It's the standard academic shorthand for "we have no idea." But what if these stones weren't just for looking at the stars? What if they were designed to change us? Recent breakthroughs in archaeogenetics and bioresonance suggest a staggering possibility that these stone circles contain a genetic blueprint, a deliberate piece of biological engineering designed to trigger a shift in the human genome itself. Grab a coffee. We need to talk about the day humanity stopped being wild and who or what wrote the code for that transition. 1:30 to 5. The impossible anomaly. When we look at Stonehenge or the Ring of Brodgar, we see ancient history. But we're looking at the finished product. We rarely think about the why. Think about the sheer logistical nightmare of Göbekli Tepe. This wasn't a weekend project. It required hundreds of people, organized labor, a steady food supply, and, most importantly, a shared vision. But here's the kicker. At that time, humans didn't live in large groups. We lived in tribes of 20 or 30. To build this, those tribes had to merge. And right at the moment these stones were raised, something shifted in our DNA. Scientists have long been puzzled by the Neolithic transition. It's that blink of an eye moment in the evolutionary timeline where humans suddenly developed the ability to digest milk, the tolerance for living in crowded, disease-prone cities, and a fundamental shift in our stress response genes. Now, you might think, sure, we just adapted to farming. But the genetic data shows something odd. The shift didn't happen after we started farming. It happened concurrently with the construction of these circles. It's almost as if the circles were the catalyst. The stones themselves are often composed of high-quartz granite or limestone, materials that possess piezoelectric properties. For those who skipped physics, if you put these stones under pressure or hit them with specific sound frequencies, they generate an electric charge. And if you've ever stood in the center of a stone circle during a thunderstorm or even a loud chant, you felt it, that hum, that vibration in your marrow. We're beginning to understand that these sites were essentially massive, low-frequency acoustic chambers. And sound, as it turns out, is one of the most potent ways to influence gene expression. 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock. The genetic trigger. Let's get into the narrator's aside for a moment. You've probably heard of epigenetics. It's the study of how your environment can turn certain genes on or off without changing the DNA sequence itself. It's why one twin might get a disease while the other doesn't. Now, imagine an ancient architect who understands this. Researchers studying the acoustics of the Megalithic stone circles found that they resonate at a frequency of 110 Hz. Why does that matter? Because 110 Hz is the exact frequency that shifts the human brain into a state of deactivation in the left prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, language, and the ego. When that part of the brain goes dark, the right side, associated with empathy, so pattern recognition and holistic thinking, lights up like a Christmas tree. If you keep a population of people in this acoustic environment for generations, you aren't just giving them a spiritual experience, you are literally pruning their neural pathways. You are training their DNA to prioritize collective harmony over individual survival. Is it possible that these stone circles were evolutionary pressure cookers? Consider the blue-eyed mystery. Around 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, a single genetic mutation occurred in a person living near the Black Sea, resulting in blue eyes. Before this, everyone had brown eyes. This mutation spread with viral speed across Europe, moving along the exact same routes where we find these megalithic circles. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe these sites were nodes in a network designed to propagate specific biological traits. When we look at the carvings on the pillars at Göbekli Tepe, we don't see scenes of hunting. We see symbols, vultures, foxes, H-shaped glyphs. Some researchers believe these aren't just pictures. They are a visual language designed to communicate with the subconscious. They are mimetic blueprints. If you want to change a species, you don't just change their environment. You change their operating system. And the stone circles were the hardware, 9 o'clock to 13 o'clock. The worldwide grid. And no, you don't have to replay that part. It really happened. The sheer scale of this blueprint is global. If this was just one crazy cult in Turkey, we could write it off. But we see the same patterns in the Senegambian stone circles in West Africa. We see them in the medicine wheels of North America. We see them in the underwater structures off the coast of Yonaguni. The builders were obsessed with geometry, specifically the golden ratio and the squaring of the circle. In the 1970s, a researcher named Alexander Thom spent decades surveying hundreds of stone circles in Britain. He discovered they were all built using a standard unit of measurement he called the megalithic yard, exactly 2.72 feet. How does a guy in the Orkney Islands use the exact same unit of measurement as a guy in Brittany, hundreds of miles, and a dangerous sea crossing away? The answer might lie in the Earth itself. These circles are almost always positioned over telluric currents, subtle electric veins that run through the Earth's crust. If you place a massive, quartz-rich stone on one of these acupuncture points, you create a localized electromagnetic field. Now think about your own body. You are a bioelectric being. Your heart beats because of electrical impulses. Your neurons fire with electricity. If you step into one of these fields, your body attempts to entrain with the frequency of the Earth. It's a process called bioresonance. Recent studies on the skeletons found near these ancient sites show something startling. These people weren't just locals. At Stonehenge, isotope analysis reveals that people traveled from as far away as the Alps to be there. They weren't coming for a vacation. They were coming for a recoding. Evidence suggests that pregnant women were often brought to these sites. If you wanted to ensure that the next generation had the blueprint, the epigenetic markers for higher intelligence, lower aggression, or even enhanced sensory perception, you brought the womb to the stone. It sounds like science fiction. But when you look at the sudden explosive rise of human civilization, from cave paintings to the pyramids, in what is, evolutionarily speaking, a heartbeat, you have to ask, where did the instructions come from? 1300 to 1630. The shadow of the architects. Who were the architects? The myths of almost every ancient culture speak of civilizing heroes or shining ones who arrived after a great catastrophe to teach humanity the arts of agriculture, law, and the measuring of the earth. In Sumeria, they were the Apkallu. In Egypt, the Shemsu Hor, the followers of Horus. For a long time, we treated these as fairy tales, but the genetics are telling a different story. Around 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, There was a massive pulse in the human gene pool. We see the introduction of ghost populations, DNA sequences that don't match any known hominid ancestor. Is it possible that a remnant of a highly advanced, pre-cataclysmic civilization used these stone circles to bootstrap the surviving hunter-gatherers? Imagine you're a survivor of a global collapse. You have the knowledge, but you don't have the tools. You can't build a computer, but you can build a stone circle. You can't write a textbook that will last 10,000 years, but you can carve the information into a pillar of basalt. You build these sites to serve as biological libraries. You design them so that anyone who enters them, even thousands of years later, will be subtly influenced by the geometry, the sound, and the electromagnetic resonance. The secret genetic blueprint isn't a piece of paper. It's a frequency. It's a specific way of being that is encoded into the very marrow of our bones when we interact with these ancient spaces. And if that sounds too out there, consider this. Modern scientists are currently experimenting with optogenetics, using light and sound to turn genes on and off in living tissue. We are just now discovering the technology that the ancients were using with nothing but rock and ritual, 1630 to 1800. The echo in the bone. So, where does that leave us? We live in a world of glass and steel, of 5G signals and constant digital noise. We've drifted far from the quiet resonance of the stones, but the blueprint is still there. Every time you feel a sense of inexplicable awe standing in an ancient cathedral, many of which were built directly on top of these old stone circles, you are feeling the echo. Your DNA remembers the frequency. Maybe the reason we are so obsessed with these sites isn't because they are mysteries to be solved. Maybe it's because we feel a sense of homesickness for a version of ourselves we've forgotten, a version that was more connected, more resonant, and more tuned in to the planet we walk upon. The world's oldest stone circles aren't graveyards of the past. They are reminders of a potential we still carry in our blood. The blueprint is inside you. All you have to do is find the right frequency to read it. The next time you find yourself near one of these ancient giants, don't just take a photo. Close your eyes, stop talking, and just listen, because the stones are still speaking. The question is, are you ready to hear what they have to say?